All right, this is Introduction to Computers. We're going to review some things plus talk about some new things. First of all of these items on the diagram, how would you rate what they are? Would you say they're hardware, software? Hardware. Okay, so we're talking about hardware. When you come in from the internet, can you see that yellow line, everybody? See that? Okay. So I could switch this, by the way. I could go here. I could go blue. And then I could get rid of my, undo that. And then I actually could use my eraser, erase the yellow line. Okay. That's a little bit easier to see. So you come into the internet, okay? If you come into the internet, I'm just going to review a bunch of things. And by the way, you will have this, right? When we're done, you'll be able to go on YouTube and look at it before the test on Friday, okay? Rather than you try to necessarily write it all down. So can you connect to the internet from home? As long as you have a what?
Internet connection.
An internet connection, and who gives you that? An internet service provider, an ISP. Those are just some simple terms we should know going into the test, or at least this class. We should learn that. So you have an ISP. It could be Mediacom. It could be a phone company. You have some device. You have a modem. You have a modem, and then hopefully you have a little router, and then you connect to that, either wirelessly or plugged in your house. Now, when you go to Angel in this diagram, where are you going? Anybody have a guess when you go to Angel? This is a diagram that is a simulated diagram of NIAC. Maybe not exactly, but a simulated of NIAC. Where would Angel be in this diagram? Anybody know? The servers. Okay? Here at NIAC, there's a group of servers. Okay, you come into the internet. NIAC has its internet service provider, which is the Iowa Communications Network. And then it comes in, it goes through the firewall because the firewall knows you're going to which server? Angel. Okay, so it knows that, and you'll learn why after spring break, or how. It's not real difficult, but there's a way to know. And then it lets you go into the server, then the server responds and sends the stuff back to your device, sitting out wherever. Okay? That makes sense? Now, any questions on that? It's not meant to be difficult, but any questions? Are there lots of service providers connected to the internet? Yes. And when you get some information, when you're doing your outline and you look up the word hardware and you make sure it has to do with technology, when you got that answer, that came somewheres, right, out here on some servers. Does everybody understand that? It went through the internet, then it came out and went to a server sitting somewhere. Okay? The first thing it did is it went to Google, found that server, and then you clicked on it, and then you ended up at the server. So you went to a Google place first out here. You know, people think that sits in the internet. No, the internet is just the roads. It's just the way it connects. Okay? So now, let's go back. We're going to go over here to this piece of hardware over here. This is supposed to represent what? A computer. Okay? This would probably represent a PC, whether it's a desktop or a laptop. Now, we could connect into a network with other devices, but this one is really representing one of those two. Those devices, now this one has, I have these two pictures, and I'm going to change my color here. What do they represent? If we were going to list a general term for these two. Storage? Is that okay? They're storage. A hard drive. And this one, what do you think, this smaller one in which we use light? See the word light? We use light to communicate to it. that would be like a DVD, you know, CDs, DVDs. They use laser light to read that information on and off. The information in here is stored magnetically, magnetic spots. Here the spots are burned into your DVD, and here the spots are magnetic on the device. They both communicate through this pathway inside the computer, and that's called a what?
Bus.
A bus. Sometimes electronic bus. And it's more complicated than just one line, but we don't need to worry about that in this class. Later on, actually next week, when we talk about it again, we'll talk a little bit of why you need to know as a bus. That bus has a path. It's either a 32-bit bus or a 64-bit bus. And that has some relevance on understanding technology later on. These, there's a place where you can put add-on things into your computer. They're just called yes, PCI slots. And we're just going to use the word slots because they're a little different in a laptop and they're a little different, but they're slots in which you can add things to the computer. Some people will add a graphics card. There's a special slot, in fact, for a graphics card to make the computer go faster. We talk about that in Unit 3. The device then, I'm going to go back to blue. The device now is connected to something in which here at the college, if you're in the lab, all these PCs are connected with a wire. So here I got a wire connected and say wire connected to all those PCs. This device is known as a switch. Okay, so that's a switch, this is a switch, this is a switch. And right now, that's all we need to know, is what the name of it is. Okay? This device here, that protects our network from intruders, firewall. Okay? That's a firewall. Looks a little messy, but I think we're getting the point across of what we need to know now. Okay? These devices are connected. Here, it shows them all connected by these here. This connections that we show here, they fit 2 of the 3 ways in which devices connect. They're either wired, a wired connection, or they're fiber optic. We actually have fiber optic going between the buildings here on campus. Okay, so they're either just a wire or fiber optic connecting them. Okay, here on campus you could connect the device. You can connect the device wirelessly, right? Here on campus. That makes sense. So, for example, I would assume Clayton, you're on the network, right? Connected in. So Clayton's connected wirelessly. There was no wire plugged into his computer. So he wirelessly goes to an access point and he connects in. Okay? Does that make sense? You can do the same with your phone or this tablet. This connects to the projector, but for the network, this tablet's just connected wirelessly too. I'm on a different wireless connection than Clayton. He's on the guest one here for the students. You want to talk?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So you're on the guest for the students. There's a special one where I connect separately, which is faculty. So we don't get those two mixed up, so to speak. Okay? All right. We're almost done with this part. Any questions? That's really all I think right now you need to know. We cover a few more specifics on the networking after spring break, and we cover more specifics about inside the computer next week.
What's a bus do again?
The bus is how things move through the computer. Okay? For example, yeah, I should talk a little bit more about this. I'm going to change colors again. So when you turn on your computer, okay, there's some chips in here, some ROM chips, and it has the BIOS, and we don't need to understand all that, but your computer boots up, And then your computer automatically loads the operating system, and it gets it off the hard drive, and it loads it into RAM. This is memory, random access memory. It's memory. Inline modules, versatile location for holding software and data. Okay? Then when your computer starts to process, doing something, information moves from RAM into the processor. This one chip is the processor. And then this was memory. A little hard to see, but memory or RAM, and then the processor, and the processor actually does the work. And then it sends the information back here. So a simple example would be, you open a word processor, okay? It loads it from, let's say you're at home, loads it from storage, and then you open a word processing file, so it gets that file out of here, brings that, and those things are both in RAM, okay? And then as you edit and work on it, that communicates to the processor, and the processor allows you to work on the document. Once you get it updated, then you save it back out to RAM. Back out to storage. Save it back out to storage. Make sense? And the bus is where that information moves through. Also, when it goes to the monitor, it has to go through the bus, and when you send it out to the network, like you attach it to an email and send an email to your friend, it goes out here to the network. When you send an email, does it go directly to the computer that you're sending it to? No, it goes to an email server and sits there until the person who wants to read it brings it off that computer to their computer. So it actually goes out here somewheres and sits. We'll talk a little bit more about that today. Good question. Any other questions on this diagram? I'm going to cover what's on the right-hand side here in a second. Any other questions? All right. This right here, that's called Exhibit B. So if this is the hardware down here, you see that? If this is the hardware, okay, if that's a hardware, what, by the way, these are all multiple choice. The entire test, with the exception of a couple questions I have you write an answer to on a piece of paper, the whole test is multiple choice, and I will actually show you the test on Wednesday. You'll actually see part of the test on Wednesday. If this is the hardware, right here, if this is the hardware, what communicates with the hardware? What do you think I'm looking for? CC would be the, this is all software. I'll give you a hint. This is all software. What software communicates directly to the hardware?
The operating system.
Thank you. The operating system. I think that's important to know. You get it? I think that's important to know. Okay? So then, what communicates then with the operating system? Excuse me?
Application.
App. Very good. The application communicates with the operating system. And then, who communicates with the application? User. Right? And then we know if you're a little more of an expert, you can actually do some things with the operating system, or you might even be able to manipulate your application more so than a regular user. All right. It's a little messy, but I will, are we good? Are we good on the diagram? Good? All right.